Michael Gomez, and I'm a real estate broker and an investor here in Nashville, Tennessee.
And I'm Seth Mosley, Grammy Award-winning songwriter and real estate investor.
We host a monthly meetup in Middle Tennessee for anyone who wants to build passive income, not only for retirement, but for today.
On the first Wednesday of every month, we bring in an expert from every area of investing to help you with things like finding deals, getting your financing locked in, asset protection, every kind of investing, so much more.
Our videos are all about delivering that content to you.
Go to musicandmoneyig.com for more info on our free monthly events. Hit subscribe on the page so you don't miss any awesome content, and hit that like button if you like it.
Don't let all the flair of my jacket distract you.
Here's the content.
My name is Michael Gomez, and I'm going to tell you a very, 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 very short story about me. I'm an immigrant here in the United States. I came here with $200 in my pockets about 15 years ago to be a guitar player for a contemporary Christian band. And I moved to Maine because it made sense from the Dominican to move to Maine. And I got there. It was the summer or summer, how they say it out there. And I'm like, this is the most beautiful thing in the world. Look at all these trees, and then the leaves start changing colors, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the leaves are changing colors. This is great. And then it happened. The devil's dandruff. Snow as far as the eye could see. It was insane. I remember my father-in-law telling me one day, Mike, go dig out the mailbox. Literally, you could not see the mailbox. I had to dig it out. It was awesome. No, but I met my wife out there, so something great came out of Maine. And Maine, it's a great state, and they have great lobster, yada, yada. It's great. Go visit. Go Maine. So I came here, and all kinds of jobs. I was a landscaper in Maine. I worked at the Gap, Banana Republic, and all these things. Eventually, the band that I started playing with, we got a development deal here to come to Nashville and be signed to a record label. And I remember telling the guys, hey, we're not getting any younger, so we just got to uproot and just all of us moved to Nashville. So that's what we did about 10 years ago. It was quite a very different city. I know some of you guys are from here, and you know what I mean, where it was just not much going on. We moved to Spring Hill, and I thought Spring Hill was just one road with like a Kroger, which I used to say Kroeger, because that's what I thought it was. But eventually, as I was playing music, and my wife and I decided to have a family and expand with kids, and it seemed like we never stop. Anyways, that's a different story. But I said to myself, I need to be able to do something where I can still do music and make a little bit of money. And so I remember all the houses that we rented a brand new house in Spring Hill that a builder had built and nobody bought because we were just kind of like in the tail end of the the housing crisis that we had. And I remember when I moved to the neighborhood, for sale signs everywhere, and nobody was buying these houses. And then I remember slowly when people started buying the houses again, 1, 2, 3. So one day I was watching a show about some dudes in like California selling like $1 million listings and all that. And I looked at it and I said, I can do that. And so I studied online, Kaplan University, to get my real estate license while I was playing with the band in New Jersey and who knows where. Got my license and started like selling foreclosures because that's all we had here. Fannie Mae's, Freddie Mac's, HUD Homes. They used to call me Mike the HUD Gomez because even agents didn't want to deal with HUD Homes because they were such a pain. You had to get like original signatures with everybody. We still had MapQuest back then. I mean, it was all kinds of weird things on real estate. So, but I got really good on just finding kind of like distressed assets and all that. And then eventually met Seth and started learning about investments and started getting into just reading books about it and going to Texas to syndication seminars and everything that I could do to be able to learn on how I can gain passive income. My first goal, or our first goal, was to be able to have all our basic monthly payments of everything of life covered by passive income. And we achieved that a couple of years ago. It's awesome. Knowing that, hey, listen, something happens. It could be a housing crisis. I could be, replaced by technology as a broker or whatever. And I don't have to sell my car or sell my house or do anything because of this army of rentals that we were able to achieve. So Today, I want to talk to you about what it is definitely by far my favorite investment group, and it's just because, a few things. Normally, they're Class A assets or in an area that's like up and coming that will be like a B plus or A or something like that. And so they tend to appreciate pretty quick. And my favorite thing, which is the cash flow. When you compare a short-term rental to a regular rental, you're gonna quickly realize that it's like a lot more than you make on a short-term rental. There's also a lot more, they're a little bit more involved or a lot more involved with management and all that, but we'll get to that. So, okay, so before that, Jeff is going to be our next speaker next month. So come on down to hear everything about multifamily and management and all those things. So I think I was done with this. Oh, and Adrienne Doranson. Okay, there we go. She is also going to be our March speaker on how to make your business run like a clockwork. So don't miss that. And here we are to 2.0. I call it 2.0 because last year I had a similar presentation. And as you'll learn, a few things have changed and updating legislations and things like that. We still want to see if the short-term rental market is healthy and all that. So this is kind of like a little bit of a refresh for this. This is my face. I am not a car dealer. That was a selfie I took like in Nebraska after a gig, and I made that my business card because I thought my hair and the glasses make me look like bad. And, so that's my business card right there. That's right. You guys want a close-up? No. I don't. Okay, what is a short-term rental and why should we invest in them? Okay, so the legal definition of a short-term rental property, or STRP, I normally just call them STR, is defined as a residential dwelling unit containing not more than 4 sleeping rooms that is used and or advertised for transition occupancy. This is Metro Nashville. We also have to add that it's 30 days less. Okay, let me think, because I have English and Spanish in my head, so bear with me. And by bear, I don't mean the animal. Which is very confusing, this language. So if you rent a property for more than 30 days, it's a regular rental. You don't need to go get a permit, yada, yada, yada. But if it's less than 30 days or day to day or week by week, then it will fall into the short-term rental category and you will need a permit. Okay? If you don't get a permit, you can get away with it for a year or two, but eventually they're going to cut up and just have it shut down. So the why, this is one of the whys, okay? The use of short-term rentals has grown exponentially in the last few years, with global sales projected to reach $132.5 billion by 2022, nearly triple what they were in 2012. So I think it was 2005 or something like that, VRBO came out. Could have been 95, but I have to double check. And they were one of the first type of these companies where and this starts a vacation rental situation. So part of the growth, or I would say the majority of the growth has been when Airbnb comes in, and now suddenly like anybody can rent part of their house or their house, and now travelers have more options than just the regular standard thing that we had for centuries, which is be a hotel with a lobby and all that. So now people come to Nashville or any town and they don't have to just look at hotels. They can go to Airbnb, VRBO, and find a house that maybe meets their needs in a more suitable way. Maybe there's a group of 10 or 12. Maybe they want, they don't want necessarily to be doing any interaction with anybody. I don't know. But this trend of people staying in short-term rentals, as I'm going to get a friend of mine a little later to chat about, is just keep growing and growing and growing. So yes, the hotel industry is also growing, especially here in Nashville. And I'm going to talk about a lot of the local market, which is what I really know. Every town, every city literally has their own set of rules regarding short-term rentals. So Franklin has a set of rules, Nashville has a set of rules, Belmead has a set of rules. So Murfreesboro, et cetera, et cetera. And then you take that to cities like Miami and Austin or New York. They'll have a different set of rules. So you always want to keep that in mind. I went to Florida 2 months ago to look at some multifamily with a friend. And while there, we're trying to see, hey, does it make sense to like do short-term rental here? After like 2 or 3 days, it was just so hard to even find where it was allowed to have a short-term rental, and then to find a property that actually made sense there. We were like in the Fort Lauderdale area, and we're like, okay, this is not the place to do it. And then you have the other side where it's just more the vacation rental, like if you want to go to like 30A or Panama City. Like over there, I'm not saying it doesn't make sense. I have friends that own out there and they do really well, but you do have to keep in mind that it's sort of seasonal, and you have a really good season, and then the rest of the year is kind of like not much going on, but then again, you can maybe use it and yada yada. So, short-term rentals are growing, and everybody's taking notice. So there's the hotel lobbies and the cities, and there's been a lot of I don't want to say drama, but yeah, drama, because when short-term rentals came into play in the city of Nashville, obviously nobody really knew, like Metro didn't know what to do or how to handle it, and they weren't supposed to. Nobody just got here, and suddenly people are able to rent their houses on a nightly basis. So they started first with just a zip code amount of permits per zip code. Like, let's say, we're gonna have 100 permits per zip code, whether they were owner occupied or non-owner occupied. Nobody had still like figured that out. So that's how the city started giving permits back in, maybe 3-4 years ago. I remember going into the website and seeing how many permits left there were in any particular zip code, and that's how you were deciding to buy there or not. Now, a good thing is that the city cannot take a permit away from you if they've given you a permit. They did that this last year. They ruled that some permits were given as a mistake. So there's one precedent of that, but the norm is the city is giving you a permit, and something changes further on, they don't have the ability to come and say, okay, now because we've changed, we're not going to get you a permit. They can maybe ban somebody else if you sell that asset to obtain a permit, but your permit will stay there with no problem. Let's see what else I got. Why Nashville? I'm going to go through this very quick. Everybody knows by now, most likely that's here, that Nashville has become the it city of the United States, where hotels are now as expensive and even more expensive than Boston and New York. That was an actual article in the Tennessean. So if you try to book a hotel on a Friday night, even if there's not an event, you're probably looking at $450 plus tax, $502, like in, let's say, the Omni or any of those boutique hotels. And you get what you get. You get a nice hotel with nice lobby, super clean, you know what to expect, and you get 2 beds, or 1 bed. That's about it. 4 people, maximum occupancy in most cases. There's a few things about our lovely city here. How's the South Red Hot Town? It's created most collar jobs, and of course, here it doesn't even mention, the Amazon effect, where I know the Amazon employees are coming, because this Saturday I'm going out with a couple from Seattle, and she's moving here because of Amazon. So I know they're here already shopping. They're not going anywhere. So I believe that the real estate landscape is going to change drastically on that, because you're talking about, they're saying 5,000 employees are going to be making between 100 or 75 and 150,000. So everything that's in the 350 to 600,000 is going to, if everybody comes sort of at the same time, you're not going to be able to build them quick enough for them. And of course, then there comes their families to come stay and visit Nashville. I don't know if you remember, about 2 months ago, the Buffalo Bills came to town to play the Titans. And I flew in my brother-in-law from Buffalo, because he's a hardcore fan. He's a great guy. And that weekend, it was insane. There were 30,000 Buffalo Bills fans here in town. And they came for 2 things. They came to see the Buffalo Bills, but they came because they wanted to see Nashville. They wanted to experience Music Town. They wanted to see the honky tonks. They wanted to do the whole Nashville experience. So there is something about our city that is making people not just come for the events, but they also want to come for the experience, and they want to try the hot chicken. Economy, location, talent, livability. We have it all over here. Highest concentration of the music industry in the U.S., a national hub for the creative class. Man, live music every night of the week. Might be bad music, good music, they don't care. There's live music. 124 performance venues and 31 annual festivals. These were facts from last year. I'm sure it's grown since then. Cultural diversity, 1 in 8 Nashvillians is foreign-born. That I didn't know, so I was very happy to see that. 50% of so Nashville is very close to everything. One of the reasons why we moved here with the band too is because we could get to anywhere like in a 10 to 12 hour, well, not here, Maine, where I used to live. We used to drive that straight. No bueno, don't do that. But you're close to just about everything. So you got a lot of people from just about any area that just can drive here. Or have a 2-hour flight. As you see, I always say that you can check the heartbeat of a city by its airport. Okay, so you've been to BNA. It's monstrous what's happening there. They're expanding. I mean, they now have direct flights to Puerto Rico. I mean, they have all kinds of things now coming in. Opposed to some other markets like Memphis, let's say, where they're actually paying $28 million to shrink the airport, because they have built a huge airport that sadly is not being used as in entirety, and it's more expensive to keep it big than pay the $28 million to shrink it. Who did that math? I have no idea. Whoa. Back. Okay, here we go. So right now, my dear friend Pete from Vacasa, which I'm going to have eventually here, I emailed him the other day. I'm like, bro, how many short-term rentals permitted? Like, can you find out for me? I could have Googled it, but I was so slammed. And he did the diligence for me and says there's about 5,500 short-term rentals active permits in Davidson County. That's not counting, obviously, Franklin and all that. And then he told me that about 10% of those are non-owner occupied. I don't know if the figure is right. Did you say about 600 and something permits?
That figure was actually from April of last year. So
oh.
Right now we're probably about 6,100.
About 6,100. So this was from last year. See, I didn't even see that part. Maybe I should have read the fine print.
I mean, the zoning office is slammed every day, so
yes.
that could be in the 7,000-ish range next year. Could be very low.
Yeah, so about 7,000, probably even more. I know there's a few complexes breaking ground soon, finishing up, that are going to start showing up. Like Illume, for example, closed, and it's fully sold. I think there's a unit left there. So more coming, and I'm going to talk about market saturation a little bit to like get an idea, because I'm a fan of this, but I'm also a realist, and this is great now. This might not be great a few years from now. So I'm here so that we all can get a good perspective on this. See what I have. Okay, some buying tips regarding short-term rentals, and we're gonna talk numbers and all that stuff. But I just want to tell you, the moment you start thinking, okay, so yeah, a short-term rental, I'm intrigued. It's really cool to be able to buy. I've always wanted to buy an apartment downtown Nashville, so maybe when I retire, I can have a place there. But I want it to be profitable, and the rental ratios. When I talk about rental, I'm talking about regular rents here in Nashville. I'm going to give you a really good example of where the ratio is. Let's say you spend, $250,000 in a one-bedroom condo, and this is an actual example I'm going to give you. Okay, there's a development called Alloy up near the fairgrounds. It was like shipping containers in one side, and then you have the parking lot, and then they have the same type of units but built just with regular construction. So this side, the big side, they don't allow short-term rentals per HOA, and that's great, because they have, that's the rules. They do allow regular rentals and 30-day minimum rentals. Then across the parking lot, the same complex, you can do short-term rentals day to day and get a permit and all that stuff. So I own a unit in both sides. And so I was trying to, when I bought it really cheap, and when it was just dirt. Pre-sale is awesome. So when I got it, it was like $195, and they paid me like $5,000 in closing costs. So I bought that one in, and I said, they only have 20 investor units in that side, the one that doesn't do short term. And I said, I'm gonna buy here, and I'm gonna just put a regular renter in there and see how it goes. And I was thinking, hey, this is hot. I'm gonna get $1,700, a month in rental here. Well, I listed my unit, and so did the other 19 guys at the same time. So there were guys renting for $1,100, for $1,200. So boom, the market got saturated, and suddenly I'm like, I think my debt service with HOA and everything was about like $1,250. So I'm like, I'm not gonna make any money on this unit. What the heck am I gonna do? So in the meantime, I put the other one under contract that I was gonna do short-term day-to-day, because that's what I like to do. So I said to myself, okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to furnish it, and I'm going to do 30-day minimum rentals. So that worked really good and still working great. So I'm getting about, $2,000 to $2,200 a month to like mostly traveling nurses, but I also had a guy that came from LA who was a cameraman when they filmed E.T. It was awesome, great story. And all kinds of different, and now I'm making really good cash flow on that. But the regular rents are $1,400 max. You would be able to get there. That would barely cover your debt service. And again, something broke, and your $150 cash flow or $200 cash flow is gone. So, and then across the street, similar unit, same square footage and all. I paid $205 for that one. Again, pre-sale. Those are now, well, they're all gone, but it would have been $265, $275 to buy one of those. In just a 2-year span. Okay, so that one is just killing it. $4,000 a month, $2,300 a month, $3,500 a month, $5,000 a month, and that's just a regular short term. So that is the difference that you'll find between getting something that you're just going to do regular rental, at least here in the local Nashville market. You might be able to get better rental rates in Clarksville for a 4-bedroom per se. You might even get close to the 1% rule. You're here not even close to the 1% rule or on anything. When I have a client that calls me saying, I would like to buy a rental in Nashville, regular rental, that's at least 1%. So if I spend $300,000, I wanted to bring $3,000, I immediately say, I'm not your guy, because that doesn't exist. You're not going to get there. Now, if you buy a short-term rental, absolutely. So finding a good agent broker with experience on short-term rentals, preferably that they own also some, because they've gone through the process. Make sure they know about the legislations and in any market. This you can apply in any market, wherever you go. You find, and you can also apply it to almost any kind of asset that you buy for rental. So find a good experienced agent. Contingencies on your purchase contracts. A lot of builders don't want to see those. And of course here, the first one that I get asked the most is like, can I make a contingent on can I get a permit or before it closes? No, you can't get a permit before you close on the house. It has to be in your name, and there's a procedure, yada, yada. But if the zoning is there and there hasn't been any changes to that zoning before you close, then you should be able to get a permit, no problem. Okay? Due diligence, you want to find out everything about it. Is there a loophole in the HOA? Is the HOA saying that they're going to charge you an extra fee every year if you're going to short-term rental? You want to know everything about it in your due diligence or inspection period of whatever days you have in your contract. Get realistic projections from at least 2 property managers. Okay, so property managers, they're great. They'll want your business. You want to be able to make sure you get a couple different. Most of them will give you a free. Hey, send me the property and I'll give you an estimate. And if they're a good property managers, most likely they already know what complex you're even talking about, and they've already examined it. So they can tell you also other tips like, hey, that complex is great, but it's right next to this plant that like stinks, so you're eventually gonna, or mulch factory per se. So there's a few other factors that you want to just take under consideration, opposed to, hey, it's a great property that you think is gonna cash flow good, because at the end of the day, short-term rental, it is a review-driven business. Okay, everything's driven by likes, by reviews. So people will complain about the craziest things sometimes, and I think people can see through that as they're reading through the things. But you really want to get as best reviews as you can. So if you can have the best property in the world, if you have a diesel plant right next to it, people are going to start saying, hey, great place, great location, but man, you wake up with like itching in the throat because of this or that or whatever. Before you know it, nobody wants to stay in your place, and you got to find out what else to do with it. Lock in a great property manager. Okay, so a lot of my clients want to self-manage at first. For the first 6-7 months, they want to learn how to do it. They want to do it, and I think that's great. In my experience, it's the best thing to do is to get a property manager that's all they do. First of all, at least in my personal investment philosophy, I buy real estate to be less busy. I don't want to necessarily acquire more assets. And in this short-term rental business, you're going to have people contacting you every day, sometimes several people, several times a day. So you have to be interacting. You have to be doing this. You have to be doing that. You have to hospitality. You have to be very involved in a short-term rental if you want to run it successful. The cleaning, the everything. There's not the iron board like broke, like you got to get, or whatever. 2 a.m, something broke. Like, what are you gonna do? So like now you're trying to get passive income, and now what you did is you got another job. So that's why I'm a big fan of property managers, even though I'm also a big fan of you learning how to change sheets and even do a cleaning and whatever it is you need to do. So my background is actually, I have a degree in hotel management and tourism in the Dominican. Before I graduated, I have to go through every department, and I had to learn how to do everything so that I can actually be able to tell somebody, hey, you did that wrong, or this is not good. You want to be able to maybe get in there. But I also have clients that literally buy a property and they don't even come. They just like get a property manager and a company that furnishes it and that. And I have a lot of clients also that buy through a self-directed IRA. So everything's done through their fund, and they are very, very, very hands-off. So all kinds of whatever it is you want to do. But my recommendation is, especially if you want to continue to scale it and buy a few, it's like, unless you want a full-time job, don't be a property manager. Things to watch out for when you're buying a short-term rental. The first one, and I would say the most dangerous, is this one: potential changes in legislation, and that also applies to any city or any place that you're going to be at. We have a few legislation pending here in Nashville that I'm going to share about. This is very tricky because, as you're going to see, some of the bills that get introduced make absolutely no sense. And this is the thing. I agree with the city 100%. There should not be any non-owner occupied operators in residential zonings. That's what zonings are for. Okay, you have a residential zoning, you should not be running basically a bed and breakfast or an Airbnb or whatever we want to call it. That's why you have zoning for those things. Now, when you have the zonings of higher density and everybody's playing by the rules, everybody's paying their revenues and their taxes, which I think the number was insane of how much money the state of Tennessee collected on short-term rental taxes. I can't remember the figure, but it was like $23 million, if I remember, for last year. That's a lot of money coming in from investors and homeowners and all that stuff. So the city, this is where it could get dangerous. Let's say you have a new construction development under contract, and in the middle of all that, the legislation changes, and now what? So there's a PAC that works for the short-term rental organizations. There's a organization called NASTRA, which I'm going to give you, that I'm going to give you their information so that you can join if you're interested. And it's an awesome organization that fight for the rights of not just the investor crowd, but also because even, as you're going to see, even the owner-occupieds are like being now contested in many, many areas. Market saturation. Yes, I mean, I own 2 units in a complex that has 16 units total. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, everybody's going to do Airbnb here. This is going to be terrible. And no, we had 1 million more visitors last year than the prior year. And this year is probably going to be the same. We had events like the draft, and every time we have a game and everything, like we have more people coming to Nashville that we can basically handle. And we were actually successful in doing the NFL draft because of hosts, because people had places to stay. The hotels were full, so where were they going to stay? Like they were going to camp out, like Bonnaroo style? I don't think so. They stayed in my Airbnb and your Airbnb and all that stuff. So market saturation, I do believe, yes. I think that last year, I remember there was a time where I saw so many complexes coming at the same time, and I'm like, oh boy, there's gonna be this is gonna be interesting, because it's gonna be. And then immediately, so many legislation changes, and the RM20 zoning, which was allowed for like 20 units, started to get contested, and all these things. So eventually, like the confidence on building a whole bunch kind of like dissipated a little bit. So honestly, like right now in the market. And I know every single unit there is, and I could almost say every unit that is coming. You don't have that many options to buy. Like if you come to me right now, I could send you maybe 3 or 4, 5, maybe different options, and like that's it. So it's not that we have like a lot of this like right at this very moment. And also I follow what the hotels are doing. I mean, you go downtown. I mean, hotels are building and they're spending millions and millions of dollars. And before they do that, they do their market research, and they can assure to their investors that there's going to be enough people coming in. So listen, as long as they're building hotels, you can still be sure there's going to be enough people here for short-term rentals too. And again, the trend is that the more people are doing, I'm not saying shifting from hotels to short-term rentals, but the short-term rental crowd keeps growing, as I showed in one of my first slides. So more people are choosing to stay in short-term rentals. Like I remember when I go anywhere, even Dominican, like I just go to Airbnb and I just go find me, a place that I can stay with the guys from my band. Opposed to like getting a hotel room and having to share a bed with somebody, So it's kind of a no-brainer. So, but do keep in mind this market saturation, like everything. I don't know if the multifamily guys have noticed in the past couple of years, everybody was super hot on multifamily, and now it's kind of like people are not as hot on multifamily anymore. I don't know if like the numbers don't make sense, the cat is out of the bag. I don't know, but you always want to be checking on this. Negative shift in the housing market, of course, that would affect the short-term rental market, because one of the first things that people stop doing when there's a crisis is they travel less. Okay, so they will still have money for booze, food, and medicine, and for the rent, but they will travel less. Okay, so if your destination is more of a touristic one, you might want to watch out for something like that. Okay, financial crisis, people travel less. Okay, so those are the things that I would say to watch out for. But I will say watch out for poorly managed property, because that could bring down your business very easy. Like I've seen units that should be making double the money that they should be bringing in, and they just have a manager that is or they just don't have even something like the amount of beds that they have in a particular unit would affect that. So, and I'm going to bring a property manager shortly here to chat about and to grill him about a few questions. So, okay, so and remember, you're going to get these slides if you text to the Get Rich number. But these are the zonings that allow short-term rentals for non-owner occupants. The following. This is for Davidson County, so this does not include Franklin. Franklin has a set of rules that I'm investigating too, because last month I think they passed something regarding not allowing any more like downtown. So you have all this, RM2 through RM20, yada yada. New permits in RM zones will no longer be issued effective January 1st, 2022. I do want to note this. On the state level, this should not be. And I know that the coalition of short-term rental is trying to take this to the state level, because we do feel like there's been a lot of infringement. And listen, I am for this. Like, if I would live in a residential area, I don't necessarily want an Airbnb next to me. That's why, I buy where there's like either an HOA that restricted or whatever to like, but if the zoning is right, we should not feel as investors that we should be constantly under attack on constantly like bombarding with like new legislation to try to restrict it. So permits also for a specific plan, SP, if you're ever buying in a complex and it's an SP, and you can ask your agent about that, the language on the SP needs to clearly state short-term rental use, or it doesn't matter what is underlining, if this SP has one of these zonings that allows it, you will not get a short-term rental permit, even as an owner-occupant. It's crazy, so just keep that in mind. Questions about property short-term rental eligibility. Avoid surprises. Email David Frabbit at Zoning Examiner. He is the zoner examiner that I use when I go to Metro, which I go there like once a week. And it might take him a couple of days, but this is part of my due diligence. Every time I have something under contract, or there's a piece of land that I want to maybe build short-term rentals for a client or yada yada, this is my first line of defense. I go here, I email him, say, Mr. David, I have this property. Has there been any injunctions? Did they lose their permit? The current owner, or anything that is going to not allow me to get a new short-term rental permit when I close on this property. So if this man says yay, yay. If he says no, it's probably no. And that is your first. And he will email you, so you'll have a record of it on writing. So beware of law changes and reinterpretations of the law. Like the city sometimes says, well, this is what we interpret that this says. So there's also a couple really good attorneys. If you're already having to contest the short-term rentals, there's a couple of attorneys, and that nastra.org is a great place to be able to find resources for something like that. Okay, so very quick, I'm going to go through the new bills recently introduced. BL2 2019-78, sponsored with wonderful Colby Sledge. That's the minimum distance requirement for any non-owner occupied short-term rentals permit. This bill states that no owner STRP permit shall be issued to an applicant whose location is less than 100 feet from a religious institution, a school, or its playground, a park, or a licensed daycare center, or its playground. If you don't really live there but claim you are an owner-occupant, reading February 20. This is when it's going to go to reading. Applies to all new non-owner occupied permits issued. So this has not passed. Okay, this was just introduced, and in February 4th, we're going to go there to show our, we don't agree with this, because I think they're getting this from a law where you're not supposed to serve alcohol within the proximity of religious institutions, schools, and all that, which is great. But here, like, this is basically telling our travelers that even though, nobody sells alcohol in a short-term rental. But yeah, people, if they want to drink a beer or two, they have the right to do so. So I think they're getting into that. So we feel that is like trying to impose on the travelers on what they can and can't do. And we feel like it's absolutely wrong to be able to tell our lovely people that come to Nashville that if they stay in a short-term rental, they should not have a drink or something, So it does get, believe me, it gets pretty ridiculous. Some of the stuff that they come up with. Sometimes I feel like they have a full-time person just thinking, okay, what else am I going to do to try to restrict like short-term rentals? So BL 2019-111 affects both owner-occupied and non-owner-occupied properties by proposing more than 40 new zonings districts which prohibit all short-term rentals. This bill proposes to take all current zonings except for RRS and DTC and create a new suffix of NS, which means no short-term rentals. The bill was proposed by Ian Parker, Toms, and Sledge and was deferred to the February 4th, 2020. This is scary, of everything, because now it's to the opinion of this council people, in their opinion, where there should be or should not be any short-term rentals. So we're definitely going to fight this like hardcore, because we believe that nobody should be able to have to dictate that, So we have this bill coming on February 4th. And the last one, BL 2019-79, again, Freddie O'Connell would dramatically change owner-occupied restrictions. This one gets really crazy, okay? Other than a 2-family residential unit under common ownership, the HPR duplex status with a 2-family unit in the same lot, advertisements for an owner-occupied short-term rental shall not advertise availability of all the bedrooms within the unit for short-term rental use. In short, this means owner-occupied short-term rentals can no longer be whole home rentals. Okay? So basically, and this is for everybody, And the owner shall reside on site at all times of the property, and it's been used as a short-term rental. The owner shall not be permitted to be temporarily absent from the dwelling unit for longer than 15 consecutive hours within any 24-hour period while the property is being used as an owner-occupied short-term rental, reading March 3rd. I don't think this is going to pass. I mean, I don't know where they're even going with this, because, first of all, who's going to enforce this? First of all, who's going to tell you? Okay, so that means that if you have a short-term rental and you went on vacation for 3 days, like, you're going to lose your permit because of that? I mean, so it goes beyond like the absurd over here. So not sure what they're trying to do, but I don't like it. So all these things, I'm going to keep you informed of what happens, and I'm going to tell you also, if you're an owner or if you're even just an investor in period, how you can join, the owners, because if they do this to the short-term rentals, I mean, they could do this to just about any other investment class. What should we do? First of all, join Stradorg. They are awesome. Megan McCrea runs this organization where now we are grouped together. There's a Facebook group that's public, and then when you join as a member, you get a lot of more information and a private group too. That we love, because we can ask all kinds of questions. A lot of times we watch out for each other, like, hey, so-and-so is coming in and looks shady, beware of this guy, and then everybody kind of keeps track of each other. And then we all get together and go to the council meetings, and we email them and we call them, and we say, hey, what is going on? Well, we understand that the residential zonings and all this stuff, but why are you trying to now? Listen, short-term rentals. I have a lot of clients that are owner-occupied that can't afford their payments because now they can rent it out when they go out on tour, for like 2 months. So this is like people's livelihood that the city is trying to impose on what they believe is the best for everybody. So you can email all Metro Council members using this, say, hey, no to those short-term rental bills that you're trying to do. Email, call, and set up meetings with your individual council member. Get personal, share how these bills will impact you, and ask them to vote no. Let's see, how to lose a permit real quick. If you change the ownership, if you already own a short-term rental, you change the ownership. Like, let's say it is your property, but you say, hey, I'm gonna do a trust, and I'm going to put my property on it. You would have to straight up take your listing down, reapply for a permit, and then get it before you do any changes to the owners. You got married, like my friend who got married, and then his wife got on the deed, and then they got a letter, we're taking your permit out because the change of ownership, it is that ridiculous at times. So whatever you do not change whatever's on your deed if you already have a permit. And if you do have to change it, take your permit out, send your letters, and you can do this with enough time, and then show up the day after you took the permit out. Hey, I had a permit here, I took the listing down, I need to apply for a new permit because I did a change of ownership on the title, even though nothing really changed. If you don't really live there but claim you're an owner-occupant, eventually they will find you. How they prove it, they go all kinds of lengths to do that. 3 strikes too, so if you get a lot of complaints, and I'm going to ask one of my good friends who's a great property manager to see if he gets a lot of those. Also, exit strategies, okay? So like anything that you invest in, anything, I don't care what it is, especially if it's real estate, but you should always think, okay, it has the word investment at the end, so it means that it could be lost. In this case, I don't think you would actually lose the asset, but you would potentially lose the cash flow. And if you're counting on that cash flow for short-term rental, that's hefty at times to be able to do this and to do that. And now you got your car payment comes out of this, or your house payment you're paying because of this. Like, you could be dramatically affected if you would have to change strategies on that asset. So you can go back to regular rental and see if that makes sense. You can do executive rentals, 30 days minimum. This is working really good all over Nashville, and I think it's going to continue to do really well in the next few years as we get more people wanting to come here, more people building, and they want something already furnished. This is great. And you can also sell it. Most likely your asset had appreciated, or you've made enough money or really good money the past couple of years that you run it, where you're like, okay, this sucks, I have to sell it, but I made 100% my return back in 3 years. So my down payment, I get that back, and then I make about 90, 100,000. So let's just sell it and move forward. So those are the things that you can do with this. You can also always move in and live in it yourself, but I don't call that an exit strategy. Case study. Okay, so real quick, I'm gonna present you, and again, text so you can get this slides. I was trying to print out sheets for this, but my wife called me last minute Mike. So literally this morning I was trying to print, I couldn't do it. So we have here, and this is very small to see, but when you go and get the slides, basically it's a breakdown of a property, and you're gonna see everything, every single expense that you're gonna have, from the cleaning that's a pass-through, from your average property management fees, from your acquisition fees, estimated average nightly rents, potential gross income, and then deductions. This example, it came out very small here, but basically it's a property that's about $450,000, and you're buying it with 20% down. So it shows you your mortgage at 1922, I believe. At a 5% rate, you might be able to get a little bit less, a little bit low, but here and there. Here you have furnishing costs at $20,000. That might be high. You might be able to do a little bit better with that, and so on. And what else you have? Okay, utilities, electricity, water, cable. So like I say, you're paying already, a few more things than if you would just have a regular rental. So do keep that in mind when you're running numbers, as if the short-term rental is going to be as good as your regular rental, because in some occasions you might be very close and it might be be worth it, opposed to having all this traffic and all this work. It might be worth it to just get a regular rental in some places, you know. So you have insurance, which is cheap because Eric Stewart did it. Property taxes, capital expenditures, you have everything. So cash after that. So here you invested in this scenario, you invested $110,000. This is your 20% down with your furnishing and yada yada. I don't know if you have we have closing costs in there, but let's say you're very close to the 110, and so you'll be on a after everything's said and done, you are at 15.47. So you're here at a 14.1 cash on cash, at an 8.59 cap rate, at a monthly profit of $12.90. So this is your cash flow and your 110,000 investment, somewhere on there. Some do better than this, some not do as good. I always recommend the 3 bedrooms opposed to the 1 bedrooms, but a lot of my investors just want to get into one, so they buy a 1 bedroom and they do good. Definitely way better than if it was a regular rental. But the 3 bedrooms, now you can fit 10 people. Okay, so now when the bachelorette party is coming from the the one that says, they say roll tide, they say 50, they go 50 each, and then before you know it, you have 10 people on your place, opposed to a $500. Okay, so instead of paying $500 a room, they're paying $500 for your whole place. That's when it gets really fun. And you do have 2 months that are a little bit slow, which are January and February. And but I still cover all my debt service and all my short-term rentals, even during those months. So that's all I have over here. I'm going to invite my friend Brandon McSwain for a little bit, and then I'm going to get my friend Pete Blankenship to chat about just a few things, and I'm going to open it for questions. So Brandon, who are you?
I'm Brandon.
Why are your hands so big?
Because the rest of my body is very large.
First time I met him, he shook my hand. I thought he was having like a baseball glove or something. So Brandon is a wonderful property management who started a few years ago. And how many properties do you manage currently?
So we're at about 35 properties listed. We've got about 10 to 15 more, either being furnished and designed or under contract, that are coming this next year. So about 50.
So about 50. Okay. So I just want to ask you a few things. For example, what makes a short-term rental a winner from your perspective, since you do this every day?
Sure. So there's quite a few things that make short-term rentals do well. When people come to Nashville, they're looking for very specific things in the short-term rental market. One of the main things is value. So, Mike kind of talked about it a little bit already, where you put 10 folks in a house, they all have, comfortable sleeping arrangements. They all have a bed, they all have place, restrooms and connected to each bathroom or each bedroom. So the value is there where, $50, $75 per person per night is way better than spending $450 or $500 on a hotel room that sleeps 4. So now your math is a lot higher to be downtown in a hotel. So it's 2 things. It's value, and then it's also community of the guest and the travelers. So they're, the communal spaces of having, especially the open concept. Most of these places are open concept now, where it's living room, kitchen, dining room, where everybody can, do brunch or make drinks before they go out, or they can have a place to come and hang out all together after their night's over. So there's a huge value add of having that kind of their own private space to be together. So those are really, the value is the huge thing that drives, I feel like, the short-term rental market, is just the value of what they can pay and what they get for the price.
What is it that they look for? Is it a safe place, location? Like, in order of importance, if somebody was buying or looking, I'm looking for a short-term rental, so what is it that I'm looking for?
So the number one question we get, the number one inquiry every single day is, what can we walk to? Which everybody just thinks we're New York or something all of a sudden, that Nashville is, all these homes are within walking distance to things, which they aren't. So we spend every day kind of explaining where the house is, what is, what's in relation to that. A lot of folks now are flying in We have people drive in too, but most people fly in, they Uber everywhere, so they want to know, well, how much am I going to spend on an Uber? How long is it going to take me to get to the the closest coffee shop or Broadway? Most people know the main attractions, so they know Broadway, they know the Grand Ole Opry. Nobody knows that the Grand Ole Opry is 20 minutes outside of town versus downtown. So you have that conversation every day. But they're looking they want to be a part of the pulse of the city is really what it comes down to. They want to come in, they want to stay in a house where they can go be a part of everything that's going on, all the bars, the honky tonks, the neon lights. They want that experience. And so that's really the first question. So what you're looking for in a short-term rental, it's hard because they don't really exist downtown. So you can't. So you try to get as close as you can to downtown. So a 5-minute Uber ride is great. A 10-minute Uber ride can be good if it's you're not hitting traffic certain times. And then kind of the next things. Safety is an issue people ask about. It's more of an after the fact. Like they're not looking for that, but if they come in and they feel unsafe, whether they are unsafe or not. If they come into a different situation, then it can be an issue. So it can be an issue on reviews. It can be an issue on, people. Fear is a big driving factor. So the safer it is, the better reviews, the better kind of longevity you're going to have in the short-term rental. And you have to control it. So control expectation.
What should I be looking for as an investor on a management company? Like, is it that communication that sets up those expectations where you're already telling people like, hey, this is really what it is, and then, or like what? Go ahead.
There's a lot of things. Being a management company owner, for me, I don't really sell people. I just tell people what I'm passionate about and how I got into this. I got into this as an investor. I own properties myself, and love the hospitality side of it. I love the system side of it of, building teams and people and folks to take care of folks. And really I think for me, if I was looking for a management company, there's a thing called second mile service where, it's an old story where back in the old days I'm not going to say this right, but
this is a safe place. You can say it.
Well, yeah.
Pour out your heart.
So the army men could ask certain folks of certain cultures, this was way back in the day, could ask them to carry their packs, and their all their equipment for a mile. That was like the law.
Well, where is this going?
You'll see. So there's this idea that if someone asks you to carry something for a mile, you carry it 2 miles. And so for me, I think in a management company, that's the difference, is the second mile. It's not the first mile. Every management company can provide a house, can put up a listing, can clean the house, can, put out some coffee. Everybody can do that. You can do that yourself. You can self-manage. I think the difference in what you're looking for in a management company is the second mile. It's going the second mile. It's going, hey, you need an early check-in. Well, we got people checking out, but I'm gonna list you first on the cleaning side. We're gonna get you in 2 hours early. It's a lot more work on me. I don't make any more money, but I'm gonna try to do this to help you out. We had a lady that asked for a frying pan at one of the houses last week, and I Amazon primed, or Amazon Now, which is one of the great secrets of property management. Amazon Now, and they delivered within an hour a full set of new pots and pans, whole 30-piece set.
That's amazing.
We needed some new ones anyway. But I took that approach, and our review was It was
I should check that Amazon company. They're good.
Yeah. So Amazon Now, so they have a warehouse, and they'll deliver within an hour, 2 hours.
They deliver like underwear, anything?
Anything that's listed on there, yeah.
Hey, check out Amazon.com.
Well, it's different from Prime and Now, but yes.
That's awesome.
But that's, if you're looking for a property manager, I think it's there's a lot of companies, there's a lot of people managing properties. It's kind of low. It's a low barrier to entry. It was a low barrier to entry for me when I got into it. But there's, over time, it proofs in the pudding that, if they're doing well, people come back, guests come back, numbers are there, you try to keep the occupancy up. The reviews are a big thing. I have clients all the time that check their reviews on their Airbnbs, and will send me texts like, hey man, the last few reviews have just been outstanding. Thank you so much. And that's really where, I think, the proof is in
So
that.
service, the second mile, just
Service,
going out of your way to
hospitality,
to
yep.
make sure that that's great. You guys, I'm gonna take 2 questions for Brandon. If anybody has one, do we have that catch box? We don't have the catch box, but that's okay. You'll ask something and I'll repeat it. Anybody? Over there?
We do have the box.
Oh, we do have the box. But
no
we have no questions. All right. Thank you for your testimony. Put it together for Brandon. Where can they find you if they have any questions?
McSwainManagement.com. Brandon at McSwainManagement.com is my email. So.
And you guys do full service, like you
Full
furnish
service.
the units and everything.
Yeah, our goal is for what we love to do is to take a brand new a new investment, blank slate, and create it into something really cool. And so we go in, we do the interior design, we try to make it different, unique, try to make it pop out for the clients or the guest. And then ours is we take it from 0 to 100 to listing to management to taking care of guests. So
awesome.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much. I know you got a plane to catch.
Yeah. Thank you, brother.
Look at that
Thank
hand.
y'all.
Just give it to me. I'm going to invite my friend Pete Blankenship from Vacasa now, and he will tell you all about what their company does and why are they here in Nashville. What up, Pete?
Thanks.
Awkward handshake.
Hey guys.
Here we go. All right, Pete. Who are you and who you work with, and just tell us a little bit about you.
I'm Pete Blankenship. I live here in Nashville. I used to work in the music industry as well as a promoter.
I'm sorry. I'm
Can't
sorry
hear me?
about that.
And right now, Vacasa is the largest property management company in the world. We have 23,000 units under management. That really just lets us have the scale. So even if you're not wanting to invest here in Nashville, I can connect you with anyone basically anywhere, whether it's an expert agent like Mike or another property management company. I know Mike connected when you were down in Fort Lauderdale with Irene. So she really helped you guys navigate the landscape there, saved you a lot of time. So really anything in regards to short term, I can help you in really any way, shape, or form. We do a lot of the same thing as Brandon's company. Brandon is local and really been doing it here in this market, whereas we're 2 years into this market. But we really try to grow at a slow pace so that we're not, a lot of companies will grow too quickly to really make sure that they're taking care of all of the quality can go down, from 30 houses to 70 houses, et cetera. And we just acquired Wyndham Vacation Rentals 3 months ago for $165 million. So Wyndham's been asked to be sold to multiple companies, but they felt confident in our business model and what we do and how we take care of our clients. So
amazing. So from your company's perspective, what is happening in Nashville? Why are you guys here? You're thinking you're going to be expanding. Give us an overview of why Vacasa has focused so much in Nashville.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Nashville is actually in the top 5 Airbnb cities in the whole country. It has one of the highest projected rates. Even for appreciation, as you know, as a realtor, we're averaging around a 5% appreciation per year over the last 10 years, which is amazing for just buy and hold type real estate. But when you can make more and more cash flow, up to 3 times more per month than your long term, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yes.
So really, our business model is to grow slowly within this city as people, Amazon's come in and we have a direct flight from most European countries now. Booking.com is growing a lot as far as our listing site goes. It's not all Airbnb, even though the majority is still Airbnb. And so we just see the perspective in the future as the more and more high income clients that are coming here, the more they might want to invest in opportunities that are not specifically only in Nashville. So if you have a short-term rental with me here in Nashville, but you also want a vacation property on 30A that can pay for itself, then I can connect you with those people. We can get the systems in place, same email for all your properties across the whole country if that's what you want to do. And it just makes everything really seamless.
I love it.
Yeah.
So what do you see happening here in the next 5 years? How involved is a company like Vacasa in what's happening with the short-term rental legislations and changes and things like that?
Right. So we're very involved in that. We have a whole brokerage service separately that will kind of connect large investors out of state with clients or realtors like yourself and really work it out from the whole thing. And then we don't take anything from that. It's purely as you and I have worked together, just a relationship thing, and we enjoy working with each other and we do a good job on each end. So But long term in Nashville, I mean, they're expecting, rise in income, rise in properties being built. There's not enough properties to satisfy all of the potential income. Even rent to buy is becoming a really large thing in subdivisions here. So overall, I mean, we're seeing the perspective in Nashville to continue to increase. As I said, I think there's going to be 1,000 more in the next year personally. If you look, we've been doing it here for 5 years or so legally, and there's 5,000 permits. So 1,000 growing in another year with a potential of 1,500 in the next year is a pretty significant increase. The only thing that worries me, obviously, is some of the legislation that you've talked about, but there's just too much taxpayer dollar, I think, for the city to get rid of it as a whole, because
Especially a city that's in the hole.
Right. And I mean, when you look at our city, people want to come and stay with their dogs or visit their children at college and come back and have a meal. You can't do those type of things at hotels, and so that really gives us a big selling point, because people my age want to bring their dog to their hotel and they can't most of the time. Here you have a big backyard, you can play with your dog, your parents can come visit you. Everything it's a pro in every way, including the taxes for the city.
Yeah, and also travelers feel like they're actually helping the little guy also,
Right.
to opposed to like contributing to like the regular chain and
Absolutely. And I mean, there's even companies that I work with, and you may know, there's companies like HostMost and some of these companies that directly kind of tailor things to you. So if you're coming to stay in a Vacasa unit, you can see one that's managed by Vacasa. So we have 401k cleaning. We're the only company I know of that does that, being that all of our cleaners are salaried, which is really helps us with quality control. And then as far as, you being able to get a tailored experience in the city, we're going to have Groupon discount codes built into your offers and things like that.
Awesome.
So if you want to go in a pedal tavern and you're from New York, or a boat ride or whatever you want to do, you're going to be able to get a discount directly through your listing, which is just another reason we're adding to the guest experience and trying to make it better.
And you have other companies like Sonder, for example, like
That's right.
they're now they make their own furniture, which is really cool. They make their own furniture, and when you stay in one of their places, like you'll be able to purchase the furniture if you like it, which is really cool. It creates just a more personable type of experience opposed to staying in a hotel. And I don't mind hotels, so by no means I want to be like hostile or anything to a hostel.
Sure, yeah. But there's certain pros, like if you want to travel to a place with your friends, and even there's maximum occupancies, as per house. But I mean, some of our investors are wanting to buy a 2 or 3 bed, or 2 or 3 houses connected.
Yep.
And what people don't realize is that's a super unit. So now you can get a 20, say it's, that's a 36 potential occupancy for a 3 bed, 4 bed, 4
And
bath.
that's a lot of money.
And so, I mean, that you can tailor to business retreats. There's all kinds of things where you can capture the business market, not just the tourism market.
I
So
love
there's
it.
a lot of pros, and I'm happy to help you in any way. It's totally free to give me a call, a consultation.
Yeah,
No
how do
big
they
deal.
find you?
Pete Blankenship at Vacasa.com. I also am going to have some cards and postcards, and if you know Michael, you can always reach out to him, and he'll connect you with me, and I'll help
love
you
it.
any way I can.
Thank you so much, Pete.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Do you guys have any questions? We have time for a few, and I would love to answer anything to the best of my knowledge regarding anything short-term rental. Yes, sir. No, I'm just kidding. He was not asking. Yes.
Speak to the box. You talked a lot about Nashville, very Nashville-centric, and I get the reasons why. What about the surrounding areas? Because if you're not within a walk to the venues, at what point is the line of demarcation where if it's a 10-minute Uber ride from, the outskirts of Nashville versus 15, 20, 30 minutes, can you talk a little bit about the ramifications
Yes.
and the considerations for, Brentwood, Franklin, wherever around Nashville?
Yes, that's a great question. So how important it is to be, do people only come here for Nashville? No, the answer is no. There's Airbnbs in Columbia, Tennessee, and they're doing great. Now, the real moneymakers are going to be as close to downtown. Let's say Nashville is this little dot, and then you have this circle here, and then you have another circle, then you have another circle kind of expanding. You want to be almost as close as you can, because as Brandon said, that is the main thing that a lot of people ask, and he has to explain. Now, however, there are other little pockets that are doing really good. For example, Brentwood is not one of them. You cannot have a short-term rental in Brentwood. So there are cities that from the get-go has said, no, we're not going to do it here. But I know I have a friend of mine in Facebook, and she's got a short-term rental in Murfreesboro, and I think she's got like 2 days open, like next month. So there are pockets. I think if you follow the formula of is it close to what? Is there a university nearby? Like one of my friends sold a unit downtown that he had on Riverfront, and with that money he bought a unit in Memphis. Now you should see the difference of what he got in Memphis for that money. It was like what you call it, the last floor of a penthouse. He bought a penthouse with like $295,000 in Memphis. And here he had a unit downtown, a 1-bedroom unit. And he did it because, his son's going to school there, and you know what? He's killing it out there. So I think you want to be able to be close to whatever town you want to buy. You want to be close to the action or the it thing. If it's like a college, then be close to, in Murfreesboro, then try to be close to MTSU, because people are going to come here to visit their kids and yada yada. So you want to just be buying accordingly. Like I have some units on Hermitage, and I wish I could tell you how they're doing, but they're about to be finished in a couple months. And it should be interesting because they are 6 minutes from the airport, but they're almost 20 minutes to downtown. Right. So, when all the property managers do all the projections, I've gotten like mixed things on like if they're gonna do amazing, I think they're gonna do awesome, especially they're cheap for what they are. But it'd be interesting to see, and then what's gonna happen in Hermitage, the next few years. Is there gonna be another huge development next to it? So, but if I was you, I'd just be buying where there's something that's going to be drawing people already. And you can piggyback to the hotels. If there's a hotel digging close to there, there's a reason for that. They already know that people are coming. So that would be my answer. And keep in mind that every city does have their own kind of set of laws and regulations about how they choose to do that. So that's a good question.
Thank you.
Yes, so we got another one over here. We'll give it to, we'll see. There you go, he's walking it. And a catch.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, Michael, that was really good. I really appreciate it.
How's it going, my friend? Good to see you again.
So I had some questions about your short-term rentals. What are your vacancy rates like? I mean, is it cyclical, with travel seasons? Are you at 90%, and then in off-season, are you at 50%? And how do you account for that?
Okay, so normally my properties they're very close to downtown. So I've never seen less than 80% per year of occupancy, which is great. So that's kind of like my standard as far as if I feel like I want to buy somewhere where I can be somewhere in that neighborhood. You might not get there in year one. And this is another thing that managers should be able to tell you. When you start a property, it's like starting a new business. So you have to build your audience. You have to build those reviews. So a lot of times it takes 6-7 months to start getting those good reviews of operations, so that then you can start up the rates a little bit and start going. So most likely you're not going to start killing it day one. Although there have been cases of places where they open day one and they have the calendar is full after 20 days. They have 110 bookings. So you want to be mindful of that. And of course, January and February are going to be a little bit of a slow time. So you want to maybe get aggressive with your rates. And if you have a good property manager, their job is, and this is the good thing, they only get paid. They don't have a flat fee, so they get paid per booking, the gross, they get their percentage. So that's how they make their money. They need to get people in there so that they can get paid. So he's working to get you booked. Hopefully you're working as far as following the advice of, I've seen units that should have gotten double the bookings, but they were the owner said, no, I just want to put 1 bed there. And we're like, well, you should have 2 beds in this room, because if you don't, a lot of people don't like to share a bed. So there are a lot of things that you can do to make sure your units get more booked than the others. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, over here we got another one. Oh, no, you can go since you're right there. You have one?
Yeah, sweet.
I bring it.
Yeah. So from an owner occupant standpoint, how beneficial has that been in situations where it's a 3 or 4 bedroom house and then they rent out the remaining units? So one unit or one room is owner occupied, and then the remaining units are just typical Airbnb. How has that been for a property management standpoint, or is that typically owner management?
Those are normally owner managed. I don't think that managers like that setup, and they might even avoid it. I don't know if there's liabilities on it and all those things. But the good thing about this is that there is money to be made, and I know friends that Airbnb their house their houses, rooms, and all that stuff. I wouldn't do it. I have a family. I don't want necessarily strangers where I live. But when I was in my 20s, I would have rocked that thing like all day long. I would have been like, hey, yeah, I got my. Ooh, that probably would have been exciting to have people like every weekend, like in my house, you know. This gives you flexibility if that's what you want to do. I think the real money is actually on renting the whole place, but that's just what I think. You know, I still would go with that and make maybe $800-900 a month extra just by renting the rooms and offsetting whatever, opposed to maybe getting regular roommates. You know, it'd be an interesting equation to see if it's just better to get solid roommates, at least people that you know, or you know, and how much money you're gonna get. And I think it's gonna be depending on, is your unit the hot ticket? Where is it? You know, is it in a great location? Is it close to downtown? Is it close to Vanderbilt? You know, where you're gonna have like that influx of people coming in. You know, last year there were 12 units that listed near Vanderbilt, and they were like 700,000 each, and they sold like in 2 weeks, all of them. Somebody bought, and different owners bought all of them, and they bought because they're in that little pocket out there that they know that they're gonna get that clientele coming in and out, and so it went out super quick. I wouldn't have maybe paid that much for any short-term rental unit, but it made sense for these investors to do it, and they're doing great, you know. Yes, down here we have one, so we'll see how we can do that. He's gonna try it. We have a policy with Eric Stewart for this. No, we don't. I'm kidding. Okay, here we go. Here's the box.
So 2 questions. You keep saying investors, but supposedly you can only own 1 unit per person. So my wife can own 1, I can own 1. That's it. So how can I mean, explain that to me? Because we have a major resident. I can move her out of my house, which she wouldn't prefer, but I could say, honey, you're going to go live in Nashville and this short-term rental. How does that work?
Will you be referring to there are 2 types of permits. Owner-occupant permits and non-owner-occupant permits. Non-owner-occupants, we call ourselves the investor crowd, and you have the owner-occupied. So for owner-occupied, 1 permit, it's available for you, and it has to be your primary residence. So you will legitimately have to move to that house, get your driver's license and all the stuff that gets to the house, and then you can claim that as your primary residence. It can get a little murky because, like, for example, a guy like me, I own 7 or 8 properties in Nashville, so okay, which one's my primary, you know? Well, I do claim my primary to be in Nashville, and it's great, and I love it, and that's where I live most of the time. Sometimes, maybe.
But you have how many short-term rental permits do you have?
As an investor, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4, and about to get my 5th. So there's unlimited.
Those are all
non-occupied. Yeah,
okay.
Unlimited of those. They don't.
Gotcha.
They don't care. There's no. Nobody can tell you that you can own 50. I mean, I know a friend of mine owns 25 short-term rentals, so he's got 25 non-owner occupied permits. Yes.
Second thing is, if you have a 3-bedroom, could you rent, not so executive rental? Can you say furnish the place and then rent each bedroom separately? Be more of an executive, you know, short-term 6 months, so it wouldn't be under short-term rentals, but you would split the room. So let's just say you have $500 per room. Common area is the same. Is that, what do you call that?
That's just a regular rental. You wouldn't need a short-term rental permit for that. I think you do need to get a rental permit from Nashville. That's available, but I've never met anybody that has gotten one. It's kind of like something that's supposed to be there if you have a regular rental in Nashville, but I've never met anybody that says, hey, I have a rental permit from the city of Nashville. So that's just a regular investment. Now, there might be regulations on the HOA where that place is, as far as like you cannot split that. And there might be a rule for regular rentals in Nashville, opposed to like how many people, so many people would have to have the same last name to be able for you to split a house in different, like 3 different things legally, you know. So like, do people do it and do student housing and put like 5 students in one house? I'm sure it happens every day, but I think the legal part of it is like, that would be like student housing, and that's a different set of rules for that.
Right, okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. I love it. Anybody else? Oh, we have one up there. Maybe you can throw it up there. Jeremy, stop texting. You're probably texting me. There we go. Yes, sir.
I own a short-term rental in the Nations, and I happen to get it permitted in my LLC, and I own it, in my LLC,
Mm-hmm.
can I sell the LLC and its assets and fly under the radar on that and sell it as a current short-term rental and just pass the permit on to a new buyer?
Somehow the city has said that they will find out. So when you do sell an LLC, there is a legal procedure that happens. The city, that's the first thing that we all thought about. It's like, hey, we'll just get LLCs and then for perpetuity, this thing will be grandfathered in. I don't know that the city has the manpower to do that, but I can't advise that as a broker because you could, eventually they could say the LLC changed ownership, therefore change of ownership, therefore give us give us your permit. So the answer would be probably it's not a good idea to do that. Mm-hmm. Unless the person buying the LLC is fully aware that at some point they can come for their permit, and they're probably not going to like that. Yeah. Up there? That's a good throw.
Hey,
Yes.
thanks, Michael, for having me. Will Cannon, first time. My wife and I run a downstairs basement apartment on Airbnb. We are in a residential area. We're owner-occupied, but one of the things that we're looking at is moving on from this property. Like you said, the 1% rule just doesn't work here, but we're almost getting 1% on just the one bed bath that we list in our downstairs.
Insane. So
while we live there. So it's an awesome deal. At the beginning, you mentioned a transient situation like that in a residential area. It really doesn't work good, and we're very close with our community, so we wouldn't want to ruffle any feathers. But another one of the things that you mentioned is just the kind of executive rental, like 30-day plus. So that's something I really don't know much about. I think you said that you don't even require a permit for that, but you also said you're having a lot of success there. So under what platforms are you finding yourself to be really successful with that model?
Yes. First of all, that's great that you guys are making so much money just with the downstairs. It shows you, and this is what the city is trying to say you cannot do, because with one of those bills trying to say no, you can't do anyways. The platform is just Airbnb. That's where I advertise my 30-day minimum rentals. You can say, this is my minimum rentals. And there's also a website called furnishedfinder.com. I think we advertise there as well. But there's not, besides Airbnb, which that's probably 90% of the leads that come that want to rent my executive rental come from. I would say that's the best place to do it. That's where they're looking. And then furnishedfinder.com would also help. I think there's a small fee for a membership there. I wish there was a local company here that maybe apartment finders, you could reach out to one of the, because they get a lot of people that call and they want a furnished place, but the apartment finders, they just have the regular apartment that you can rent.
So then my follow-up would be, would I have to apply for a new permit and then start back over with the reviews? Because like you said, it's a review-driven business. We'd no longer be, if it's an executive, whole house, 30-day plus rental, then I didn't know if we'd have to get a new permit and start over with the reviews.
No, unless you're still going to advertise a day-to-day in that asset, and then you would need one. But so if you're gonna still do the upstairs executive and you're gonna keep the downstairs like Airbnb, like day to day, then you would still need to keep that permit for that, and then you would run the upstairs until somebody catches up that you don't live there, or you just put the whole thing on the 30-day minimum, and then you don't need a permit for it.
Okay, and case 2 was what I was describing. Yeah, just the whole thing. But
yeah,
I
the
can
whole
keep
thing.
the listing, keep the reviews, keep the permit.
Yeah, you could keep the review and just modify the amount of bedrooms and all those things, and now you lock that minimum 30 days, and that's it. Yeah, the moment you go 30 days, it's like 99% of the drama goes away because it just doesn't. They can't infringe into that.
Thank you. And
good luck.
Promise I won't hog the mic, but would I be able to get away from doing my occupancy tax, like that 6%,
yes.
$2.50
Yes,
per
if
night?
you do the 30-day minimum, you don't have to pay those taxes, the hotel tax and the occupancy tax.
Thank you.
Got time for 2 more questions. and then we'll be around here. I know my friend Dan. Dan, can you raise your hand up there? My friend Dan shot me yesterday some good deals and some short-term rental units coming up in East Nashville, so you might want to grab him before he leaves today. There's not that many available.
Hey, what's up, guys? Speaking of East Nashville, that's where I'm hanging out. I just live over there. My primary is over there. And my wife and I are thinking about building a detached accessory dwelling unit, kind of guest house thing.
Great idea.
And then, do the Airbnb while family's not in town. Mm-hmm. And we just don't know where to start with that. So I was wondering if you could just kind of talk about if you have any insight into where we should start.
Yes, the first thing would be, and I know because I've done this plenty in East Nashville with clients that have bought a house, and they wanted to buy the house only if they could build that detached unit, because that's what made sense for them to be able to do that. So the first thing is to partner up with a builder from East Nashville that does that very often, because they will look at your house and say, yes, the city will let you do that, and they'll probably have to go take a trip downtown. So the first step would be to find a builder that can actually tell you that you can build one, because you might even have the space in the backyard. That doesn't mean that they're going to tell you. There could be a historic overlay, conceptual overlay, whatever overlay it is, or there can even be an easement with some pipes down in there. So the only way to find out, get a builder. Yes, you can build one. That's step number one. Step number two, well, basically that's the one. If then you have to go downtown, make sure that your zoning is not like on an SP or anything weird like that, where it's just like a regular residential zoning, and then with those two things in hand, then you can potentially start building. Don't start even close to building anything until you find out that everything can be done 100% legal and that there would be a permit. You can email the gentleman here and say, hey, I'm building a detached over here. Am I going to be able to get an owner-occupant permit? And then he'll tell you, yes, you can. So the permit is actually for your main house, even though you're going to put people back there and that's the other house. So for some reason, that's how the city has it work, where you have to get the permit on the one that you occupy, and then you can advertise the one that's attached or detached. We have one over there. And by one, I did not mean Juan. Juan is not here today.
Actually, my name is John, so in Spanish, I believe it's...
Juan is actually in the house. There we go. I knew some Juan was here.
Habla español poquito. Alongside of that, what about Airstream trailers? So in my mind, I have the same situation. I just want to simplify it. Do you know if that would be possible?
That's probably a no. I know that there was a couple of years ago, they had a tiny house in Nashville, and it was like booked like 389 days a year. And I think eventually the city shut it down, something to do with, not being, being mobile or whatever. So I'm not 100% sure what they would do with an Airstream. Like if you have it, like I know when I had a tour bus, we were thinking like, hey, whenever we're on the road, we should get this tour bus an Airbnb and like make some money. Like some dude just is doing Uber in a helicopter in New York City. I saw that a couple days ago, which I thought was a really cool idea. So it'd be interesting to see. Might be a question for Mr. David, which I'm sure he's gonna be thankful that I sent him. Hold on, Bachelor. What?
It's got to be grounded, so no wheels, no trailer.
No wheels, no trailer.
It has to have like a concrete slab. So yeah, it's a great idea, but they don't.
There is your answer. Great idea. As most great ideas get shut down before it is. So what you would have to do is try to get that detached dadu unit to make it work, or even you can even build. They can even build a brand new house and just kind of set up where your basement has completely separate entrance and all that. So there's a few ways to do it where you can. But I like the detached better because you can even put a fence. Like I've seen a house in East Nashville. Literally, it was the house, a fence, and then they had that completely detached unit in the back. It was a perfect setup because you have no, they're attached. It's the same house as far as by the lot, but they're detached and they have a fence separating them. Eric Stewart.
I just had a question about, first of all, let me mention that some people actually rent out their homes on short-term rental without a property manager, which I find is crazy, right? So my question would be more for security and as far as alarms or cameras, as far as videoing who's coming in and out.
Yes.
Are there regulations or anything that prevents the homeowner from videoing people entering and leaving and anything inside the home?
No, I do think it's a great idea actually to have some sort of ring, or especially if you're self-managing, because what could happen often is this: they book a group of 6, and for example in the Dominican, when you do Airbnb, they charge you for the amount of people staying on the short-term rental. So and they literally have cameras, and they do that here. I've seen that too in a few complexes, and they want to see how many people are coming in, because especially to avoid large parties. Like some local kids will get an Airbnb and get 20 of them in there and trash it, and before you know it. So to having a camera to see who's coming in and out, I think it's a great idea. I mean, and of course I don't want to be looking at my camera all day long, so I have my property manager making sure that we get no parties that everybody's there supposed to be there. And the way that they treat it is really good. They say, hey, listen, you paid us good money for this unit. We don't want to have to go and evict you all, because that is an automatic eviction if you have more people staying than it should be here. So, have a couple of your buddies go somewhere else, and guess what happens? They go somewhere else.
Well, one more thing, because I know a lot of people don't allow pets on short-term rentals. So can people really video what's going on in the house?
No.
Not that I would do that, but I'm just curious, because I've seen it on the Nashville site.
No.
Okay.
And I think you would get terrible reviews the moment you put some sort of camera inside or whatever. Nobody wants to be like police or watch like that, especially in the experience of short-term rental. So I would limit them to just the outside back and outside front. That's where I have mine, and just in case something in the back, like we got broken into once before we were live and things like that. So you kind of want to have those kind of stuff. So I have one last question, a comment. You're Cuban, nothing simple. It's like, Dios mío, ¿por qué? Okay. No. No, I don't have to disclose that I have a camera in the outside. Okay, well, guys, thank you so much for coming in this morning. I hope this helped you a lot. I love this kind of investment. I am proceeding with caution, even though all the legislation is going on. I have 2 under contract right now one of them is not going to be built for 20 months. So, and one is going to be built in about a year. So, of course, I have contingencies there and make sure that there hasn't been any weird changes. So continue to buy short-term rentals, but continue with caution and make sure your contracts are very clear on something happens with the legislation and I can't do short-term rentals. I want to be able to be out and get my money back. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next month with Jeff.
Hey, thanks for learning with us today on the show.
We would love to meet you at one of our free monthly meetups in Middle Tennessee.
Hit the thumbs up button if you like the content. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss a thing on this channel.
Check out another awesome investing video here.